Hey everybody, welcome to our model building start to finish. This is John, and I'm sitting with
Dan.
And why don't you talk a little bit, Dan, about what this program is going to be about, and we'll go from there.
This is a red Caboose boxcar kit for a 40-foot boxcar. So this is a fairly simple build. Still, it's a kit with a lot of parts. I mean, I'm not going to build any kits that are like what they would call a shake the box kit that has like a boxcar body, a floor, and a pair of trucks. You know.
Oh yeah, you had mentioned shake the box before, and I didn't know what you were talking about.
That's what they would. That's what they would call like the old Athearn blue box kits or the old Roundhouse.
What is it? Just minimal assembly?
Yeah, it's like, very simple. You could put one together in 10 minutes because you basically have trucks, couplers, a floor, and a car body and a weight, and that's
it. Almost
it.
Seems like why bother? I mean, why not just, if it only takes a minute, why not just have someone do it?
I don't know, but anyway, we're not going to do that. Everything we're going to cover is going to be a little more involved. So stuff that requires a little bit of modeling skill.
Okay, and we're keeping the format of this semi-informal, so I will be tagging along and maybe asking questions at times. So it's a lot like a podcast, really.
Kind of, but more specialized.
Yeah, more specific to building models or building kits. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, let's get started.
Okay, so let's take the lid off.
Right, since it's start to finish, we're going to show this too.
So this is a Southern Pacific 40-foot AAR boxcar in the SP overnight scheme. And what you get is a bag with some trucks and a few other parts. And the boxcar body itself, and they've stuffed a lot of the other parts inside here. So we'll take those out.
Is that pretty common? Do they usually put it inside?
With this type of kit, yeah.
Oh, that's a lot of parts.
Yeah, so this is ladders and grab iron or stirrups and brake wheel, things like that. Doors, looks like there's a couple different kinds.
Oh, that's a cool idea. So if it's a prototype specific,
right. And then there's more ladders in silver. That's interesting. There's a set of ladders and this is the same thing but silver, and this one's in black.
Well, maybe some of them had unpainted stirrups.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the SP cars in this scheme were overall silver, or either overall silver or black, but not both. But we'll look into that. I'll just set this aside. This is the brake details for the underbody.
Right.
And then this is the underframe and coupler boxes.
All right.
And then there's also a roof walk.
Oh, so this is an old boxcar, huh?
Yeah. And then the roof.
Right, I've seen those before.
Yeah, and then the boxcar itself is wrapped in paper, so we'll take the paper off.
What's the year supposed to be for this thing?
Well, this right here on the date on the side of the car says 56.
Okay, so it is a 50s car.
Yeah. I would have to look up when SP was doing their overnight service. It was basically, if I'm not mistaken, and if any SP guys are out there and want to correct me, but it was basically less than carload lot freight service between San Francisco and Los Angeles.
Okay.
And they had a special train for it, and they ran on an expedited schedule, I believe. So
and if it was from San Francisco to LA, they probably took the coastline.
Yeah.
Right. Back when the coastline used to actually be used for something.
Yeah. Oh, and then we also have instructions.
Oh, right. Yeah. Might want that.
Sure. Hard to get out.
I'll bet you probably could put this together without the instructions, but that's a critical thing for someone else.
I recently built a bunch of these cars for we've been calling our 50s train. So yeah, I probably could, because they're and they're all similar. I mean, there's Intermountain makes some like this, Red Caboose, and there's another one called IMWX, which I think one of either Intermountain or Red Caboose bought out. But in any case, they're all very similar in terms of how they're put together.
I was going to say, that's not bragging. That's a matter of fact.
Yeah, no, I built probably 20 of these cars recently, so
Yeah.
I mean, or similar ones.
Yeah, if you ever run that 50s train again, you could add this to it.
I could, yeah. So it looks like, well, they recommend you start with the roof and mount the roof walk, but I'm not going to use this roof walk probably. And if I did, I certainly wouldn't drill holes in the car because they have, see these little dimples? Yep. This is designed so that you can drill these out and then these prongs on the roof walk will stick through the roof. But I would rather do it without drilling it. If I was going to use, this represents a wood roof walk. So before I do anything, I'll have to look at my SP boxcar reference book and see if these cars had a wood roof walk or if it's more appropriate to use a metal one. And if it's a metal one, I'll have to use an aftermarket part for that.
That would be a photo etched roof walk, probably.
Yeah, photo etched part. But I'll have to see what's more appropriate, wood or the metal. In any case, I usually would prefer to just glue the roof walk to the roof walk supports and not drill through the roof. So I'm just going to set this roof aside for the moment and the roof walk. Yeah, so then they recommend basically working on the underbody. And this is how most of these things start, is you usually start with the underside. And so we'll do that. But before I get started with that, I want to address the trucks. So inside the bag with the trucks, there were also some extra grab irons and a couple of screws. Now, these trucks have plastic wheels, and I do not like plastic wheels. So that's the first thing I'm going to change.
That's a no-no for you.
Yeah. I happen to have some nice metal wheels by Reeboks.
Don't they make shoes too?
No, different spelling.
Oh, okay.
It's REBOXX. They make all different sizes of wheels, but these are 33-inch wheels, which is appropriate for this car, and the has a 1.030 axle length. So this is pretty simple. I'm just going to pull the old wheel sets out and then pop the Reeboks wheels in.
You sure those aren't Converse?
No.
Oh.
And they spin nice. So.
Looks like it worked out well.
Yeah, well, if you use the axle length that's too short, Reeboks offers them in a bunch of different axle lengths. If it was too short, they wouldn't stay in there.
Yeah, they just drop out, huh?
And if it's too long, they won't spin.
Oh.
Because they'll be like too tight, you know.
Yeah, pushing up against it.
But this rolls really well. And these are also the 88 tread, which is a semi-fine scale tread.
Oh, so it looks better, huh?
It looks a little better, yeah. And these will run on normal HO tracks, so there's no problems there. So I like to check the wheel gauge. Usually the Reeboks wheels are fine, and in this case it looks like they are, but it's good to check it.
Yeah, I mean, if this is one of those things where you're going to run it with other models that you've fine-tuned like that, it makes sense to do it while they're still off. You know?
Yeah, it's a lot easier to do it right now when there's just a wheel set, you know, and truck in your hand and when it's attached to the car.
Yeah, it's like top-of-mind awareness, right?
Yeah. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the trucks. I'm going to set those aside for now, and we'll start working on the car body. Now, one thing I like to do, there's a set of drawings included in the instructions. I like to make sure that the car body is in the same orientation as the drawings from my perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Because it just makes it a little easier to relate where the parts go.
Sure, it'll match up with the picture.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So first of all, a lot of these cars have this molding thing, which is probably, I think it's left over from the molding process in the middle.
Oh, that big round thing.
Yeah. That's going to get covered up. You won't really see it, but sometimes it sticks up. This car's not too bad, but what you want to do is you want to make sure that this is flush with the rest of this undersill.
Yeah, it might stick out too far, right, and interfere with the brake detail or something.
Or it'll push the other parts that you're going to put on this down. So I'm just going to file this a little bit. Like I said, this particular car, it's really not that bad, so I don't have to do too much. And it doesn't matter if we take some paint off here because you'll never see it. In fact, we're going to have to glue stuff to this, so taking a little bit of this paint off is actually a good thing. It'll help the gluing. So yeah, that's better. And I'm going to go ahead and, just for gluing purposes, I'm going to file some of the paint on this part too.
What is that? So it is painted?
Yeah.
Silver paint, okay.
Silver paint, yeah.
Because I know that they make plastic that color too. I just didn't know if it was molded silver plastic.
Yeah, no, this is actually painted. It looks like the plastic is some kind of a silvery color too. But,
Yeah, that's pretty good paint.
yeah.
I'm looking at it from here, and it looks very crisp.
Yeah, actually, I was looking at the paint job on this car. It's very well done. So in the instructions, they recommend cutting the underframe from the sprue first. So that's what I'm going to do. And for this, I have a pair of sprue cutters, which is really nice for cutting small parts because you can cut the parts without stressing them. Makes it less likely you'll break something.
That's probably a must-have for most modelers, regardless of what you model.
Yeah, I really don't know how I got along without these now, especially with a lot of these cars. When we get to doing the brake detail and cutting that out, it's really hard to cut that stuff out without breaking something.
Yeah.
Because it's so fine.
I bet you probably just used a razor or something before, huh?
Yeah, you just have to be really careful because, like, you see how this has these raised prongs?
Yeah.
So if you were trying to use a knife and shoving down, it's actually putting a lot of stress on this as you're cutting.
I can see snapping something.
Yeah, so if you do cut it with a knife, you want to try to position it in such a way so that it can't move very, very far down. So you'd like want to flip it over because there's not as much sticking down on this side.
Right.
Because otherwise stuff can break. This part here is actually fairly tough, but the when you get down to the little brake details and stuff, it gets a lot more critical.
Yeah, probably any small parts, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Ladders and stuff too, because it's very easy to break those.
I would imagine if you're not replacing the grab irons with wire ones or metal ones, those would also be very fragile in plastic form.
Yes, and those can be tricky. Sometimes even with these things, it's you end up breaking there. So I'm not going to use the kit coupler boxes. I'll substitute some Katie's. So I'll just get rid of that part. Now I'm going to take a file and just clean this part up a little bit. Okay, so now the instructions want the train line off of this, which is this little piece right here. This is the part with all the brake details on it. So we have to carefully cut this part out. This is where it starts getting a little trickier. You want to be very careful with this not to break anything. See, I almost broke it right there. I did bend it in a way I didn't want to. That's okay, though. It'll be all right.
It's such a fine piece.
Yeah, it is. It's very, very fine. So now I'm going to very carefully cut these little nubs that are left over on this line off with an X-Acto knife.
Oh, boy.
Just
You're barely touching it, huh?
Yeah, I'm doing this very carefully because it's real easy to slip and ruin the part.
It almost seems like you could use a razor, like what people shave their face with.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never tried that.
It just seems like it might not be as much of a hazard to break something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it were flat like that.
That would be a new one. I've never seen anybody use a razor for modeling before. Not that kind, but
yeah,
you never know. Razor blades, yeah, single, blades.
Plus, all these new razors now have like 8 blades on them.
Yeah. There's still a little bit of flash on the underframe, so I'm just using the knife to kind of clean that up a little bit. It's probably not too necessary because this really isn't going to be that visible, but just trying to neaten it up. Okay, so now that I have the train line and the underframe all cleaned up, we have to put them together. And this basically only fits one way. There's a little channel that runs down this side, and another one runs down this side, and then there's a little crossover.
Oh, right. So you can, and it's offset, right? Yeah.
Right.
I can see
so
that.
It really only fits in there one way. Whoops, moving it around.
I could see someone cutting a notch, without looking first, and they, oh, what am I doing?
Yeah. The other thing is there's it's hard to see right now, but this little thick thing here has a little hole, and that has to point toward the ground, basically. So, which it is right now. It's pointing down. So that's another way to tell that it's oriented properly. So now that this is all together, I'm going to glue it with some liquid styrene cement.
Does that set pretty fast?
Yeah. This will also be held in place by the car body once this is all glued together. So I just noticed that the car is black on the ends. So that would explain why there's a set of black ladders and a set of silver ladders.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So
the silver ones go on the side and the black ones go on the end, I guess.
Yeah. So all the 1950s SP experts can think I'm dumb right now if they want to. But
well,
that's
they thought you were dumb earlier.
Yeah. I usually model the 90s guys, okay? Give me a break.
Okay. To quote David Lee Roth, one break coming up.
Yeah. All right, so now it's time to attach the underframe, and this is the part where it's important to get the orientation right. So I'm following the instructions, but basically this little piece that I was talking about that's supposed to point down, there's a little round thing on the train line right there. That goes next to the triple valve, which is going to go on this little stand right here.
Oh, okay. So you're putting the pieces together, but using what's there to double check.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's very important that this go this way and not that way. Otherwise, all the parts won't fit right.
Yeah, that would suck.
Yeah. So you can just basically, this should just plop on.
Oh, don't you have to glue it though?
Well, I'll glue it in a minute. I'm going to glue it with the liquid styrene cement. It's actually better to glue it after you've mated the parts.
Oh, okay.
In fact, it won't work if you don't do it that way. So,
or you could be like me when I was a kid and glue your fingers together with super glue.
Yeah, well, this glue won't glue your fingers unless your finger's touching the plastic while you're gluing it. But I'm just using the brush and getting all the seams.
That should be a pretty strong bond.
Yeah, this is really the best glue to use for plastic to plastic joints.
And what is it again?
It's this brand is 10X, but there's other brands. It's a liquid styrene cement.
Okay. Doesn't that just melt it ever so slightly so that the pieces sort of bond as they're melted together?
Yeah, it forms like basically a kind of a plastic weld.
Yeah.
So you want the pieces to be mated. They have to be mated together, touching basically, and then the glue will flow into the crack and weld them together. So it forms a very strong bond, and it doesn't usually take too long to set up. So next it says to mount the triple valve, and that's this piece. I cut it off the part sprue with all the brake parts. Whoops. If I can keep holding it. It has two little prongs. Those fit in these two little holes. And the other thing to note is it has two little holes on it. Those face toward the inside of the car as opposed to the other side, which is flat.
Did the instructions tell you all this?
Yes,
clearly?
It does.
Okay.
So I'm just going to stick it in here, and then I'll use some of that same glue.
Liquid styrene cement.
Yeah.
What brand is that again? 10X or something?
This is 10X, yeah.
It sounds like a prescription drug, doesn't it?
Kind of, yeah. There's also, I think Testers makes one. There's Ambroid is another brand.
I remember Ambroid.
Yeah. I like that glue, but sometimes it's hard to find. I think it's all more or less the same thing, though.
Yeah.
I think it's actually methyl ethyl ketone or something like that.
Well, that's easy for you to say.
Yeah. So this is another piece off of the parts tree with all the brake stuff. This is the air reservoir and piping, and that fits the little prongs in the bottom here, go in these little holes here.
Oh yeah, I can see those.
And then this part is supposed to fit into one of the sets of oval holes on the back of the triple valve. Although I'm noticing that it's a little bit too long.
So do you have to trim it, or?
Yeah, I'm gonna just a little bit. So I'm just gonna nip the slightest bit off of there.
You probably want to be careful not to cut too much, right?
Yeah, because otherwise it'll be too short, and that's not good.
Probably almost could have just,
Yeah, that looks pretty good right there.
Yeah. I was going to say probably could have almost just filed it very carefully too, huh?
Yeah, except it's hard to file those little tiny. I mean, these plastic extensions right here, that's extremely fragile.
Yeah.
Before I glue it on, I've got some 320 grit paper, and I'm going to get rid of this little molding seam on here because this side faces the outside of the car, and it might be visible.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that too. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to hold this without breaking the little pipes that are sticking out the other side. Okay, so I was trying to put the air reservoir in, and I noticed that it doesn't quite fit in the holes. Sometimes when cars are painted, I think it's the thickness of the paint sometimes. It
Closes it up a little bit.
closes it up just enough to make it hard to fit the parts. So I'm just going to take my X-Acto knife and twirl it around on a circle a little bit in these holes just to make them slightly bigger. Shouldn't take very much.
Yeah, it seems like you'd want to be careful with that too, because if the holes are too big, might be harder to glue that in too, huh?
Yeah, and it won't stay as well. So that should probably do it. All right, so this fits in now, and I just glue it here. And I can put a little glue around the posts on the bottom. And this touches right here, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue right there also, just to give it a little extra support.
I have a question. The tabs from the air tank or whatever that reservoir, that rounded cylindrical thing is, don't those go through to the floor on the inside?
Yes, they do.
So I was surmising that you might touch a little bit of glue on those tabs too.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
It'll just hold it better, right?
Right. All right, now's the part that makes me nervous. This is...
Should I be nervous too? Or?
Well, we have to cut this brake piping assembly, which is this whole thing, and it's attached in a bunch of spots, and it's really fragile, thin plastic.
Okay, well, just go slowly and carefully then, right?
Yeah, so it's really good to try to think about this as you're going, as how can I do this with the least stress on the plastic? So I usually like to start at one end and very carefully work my way around. Except I can't even get in there. Okay, I'm going to have to use a knife here because I can't get that thing in there.
Well, so much for the sprue cutters.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to... There.
Oh.
Now
I heard it snap and thought it was breaking.
Yeah, the other thing is the sprue cutters have... This is the flush side, and they also have this side. So usually you want to put the flush side toward the part because it makes a cleaner cut.
Yeah, much closer to the edge, right?
Yeah. This little corner here is another one I don't think I'm going to get... In fact, I might save that for later.
Save the hardest part for last.
Yeah, it's these are just really tricky to do without breaking something. Some of these things I just can't get to with the sprue cutters, like this little piece here. So I'm going to have to use a knife. And so I brought out my cutting mat, and I also turned this over so that there's less distance between the part and the mat. Again, so I don't stress the part too much. There. And there was another one that was hard to get to. Here, this piece up here. There.
Yeah, it's too bad that the part would be too fragile to ship just as a separate part.
Yeah. So the rest I think I can get with the cutters. Okay, so now this piece, which I managed to cut out without breaking it.
Yeah, thank goodness.
On the bottom of the car. And again, this only should go one way. This little loose hose, or not hose, but pipe here, goes into the triple valve. And there are holes in the underframe, and there's little pegs.
Yeah, so it looks like it won't even fit the other way.
It shouldn't, but and also of course the brake cylinder goes into the little hole here.
Yeah,
so
it wouldn't fit any other way.
Not really, no, but it's just it's good to pay attention, you know.
So are these also tabs that will go through the floor that you secure down there, or are they attaching on the underframe?
These just attach on the underframe.
Oh, okay.
So we're just going to position all this and then have to glue it. So this part of the brake rigging here is supposed to go into this little hole, but I discovered it's too shallow, so I'm just going to drill it out.
Seems like there's a lot of holes in this model that need to be bored out.
Yeah, usually I found that these red Caboose kits generally go together pretty well, but this one seems to have some flash or something on it. So I don't know, maybe it depends on how old the mold was when they made this.
Yeah, or maybe it was just a slight variation in the manufacturing process.
Right. Okay, the last piece of brake rigging is actually something I probably should have put in before I put in the last part, but I missed it in the instructions. That's okay. I managed to squeeze it in. Is this little pipe right here. It goes between the triple valve and the little hole in the train line that I said had to be pointing toward the floor earlier. So I'm just going to glue all this together. Now that the underbody's complete, I think this is a good place to stop. And we'll pick it up next time and work on some of the operational aspects of the car, like adding couplers and trucks.
All right, then we'll catch everybody next time on Model Building Start to Finish. Thanks for watching.